Welcome to the Humanist Perspective. My name is Joe Beck, and I'll be your host for this program series, which is brought to you via a grant from the Council for Secular Humanism. Now, if perchance you might not be one of the millions who watch this program on a regular basis, you may be wondering, what is secular humanism? Essentially, we can look at secular humanism as a people-centered philosophy that affirms the common moral decencies, honesty, integrity, the golden rule in our interaction with other people, folks from other nationalities, other countries, other religious or philosophical beliefs. Certainly we value compassion, forgiveness, and when it comes to answering life's questions, we try and utilize a rational approach. So when it comes to the question of, is there a loving, caring God, we don't see any evidence for that. Is there an afterlife? We don't see any evidence for that either. So as humanists, we essentially are people-centered. And from time to time, we have a variety of guests on our program. Today, we're very fortunate in having with us three outstanding young people who are representatives from the International Campus Freethought Alliance. And let me introduce them to you. We have Derek Araujo from Massachusetts.
That's right.
And we have DJ Grothe from Minnesota.
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Missouri, yes.
And Gabriel Carlson from?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, all right. Again, I can truly say it's a pleasure to be here with all three of you. It'll be a great opportunity for our viewers to learn something about a young adult's impression of humanism and how you folks got into humanism. I wonder if I could ask you to let me know, how did you folks develop? How did you get into becoming humanists? Derek,
well, shall I start? Yes. Well, I grew up in a Catholic family, actually, and grew up believing and going to church until I was around the age of 13 or so, and began having some severe doubts after learning lots of science and lots of history and finding out a lot that conflicted with my beliefs. And I made a decision around that time that I wasn't exactly Catholic, and slowly developed into an atheist, and also discovered humanism through the magazine in front of you, Free Inquiry, which was fantastic, but caused a lot of trouble in Sunday school by asking questions about evolution and ethics and contraception and morality and these sorts of things with which I disagreed with the church.
Right. Now, I wonder, could you give us an idea could you share any examples of what transpired when you disagreed with some of the dogmatic?
Sure. Well, at the time, the Catholic Church had nothing official really to say about evolution, other than that it was something that was disagreeable. So I began learning about evolution and reading biology texts and learning about the mountain of evidence that suggested that the biblical story was really wrong. And when I confronted my parish priest about this, he really wouldn't give me a straight answer. He sort of ran around the bush and avoided the question. And I never really got an answer out of him. And now the Pope has finally come out and said that it's a viable hypothesis, at least. But at the time, it was something that Catholics had a lot of difficulty with, and that a lot of Catholics still have difficulty with, I suppose. But just beyond that, sort of learning about the general sort of thinking that goes along with science and the skepticism of these grandiose claims that you come across in religion, that was something that really shook my faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. And for DJ, could you give us an idea as to how did you become a humanist?
Sure. When I was 14, I joined a fundamentalist sect of the Christian church, and from about 14 till I was 19 or so, I was a true believer, and I enjoyed the fellowship, the community, went to church every weekend, and I was kind of a little evangelical, proselytizing Christian. And I really believed it. And not only did I believe the theology, I really belonged to the community. I really connected with the people in that church. I ended up going to that church's college in East Texas for undergraduate studies, and while I was there, like most people when they go to college, you're introduced to a lot of new ideas. Even though this was a church college, little evangelical liberal arts academy as they called it, I was introduced to perspectives that weren't traditionally Christian in surveys of religion or philosophy surveys. I did a lot of reading on my own, and with direction from professors, I was introduced to perspectives that were contra the religious assumptions I held until then. And I had a grandiose ambition to read in the history of the Western intellectual tradition, and in doing that, I, of course, came to doubt a lot of the fundamentalist assumptions that this church had. And I was really surprised that a lot of the professors and a lot of the staff at this Christian liberal arts academy were closet doubters. If not closet non-believers, at least they weren't the kind of true believer that the members were in the local churches. In my sophomore year, I read a book by Karen Armstrong, a humanist historian of ideas. Her book was History of God. I read that and a few other books, and it really made me understand that a lot of what we believe as fundamentalist, as evangelical, religious, politically extremist Christians, well, it's unreasonable. It's not based on reason. And just like Derek, I came to atheism through my reading. And just like Derek, I came to humanism, which is it's the positive side of atheism, through free inquiry. And because of my background in performing magic and skepticism, that was also a bridge to humanism. So that's kind of the progression.
Thank you. We'll try and talk about Free Inquiry magazine a little bit more. And last but not least, Gabriel Carlson.
Well, for me it was a long process. I was raised in a Roman Catholic household, as Derek was, and I'd say it started in second or third grade. I was really little. I mean, I didn't become an atheist at that point, but I remember lying in bed before I went to sleep, thinking about the doctrine of hell and trying to get my mind around the concept of infinity, and like going around and around in a circle in my mind and thinking no matter how fast or how many times I went around, it was still not even the beginning of infinity, and wondering how God could condemn people to burn for that long for what seemed to be trivial sins. Because when you're a kid, you hear, well, if you steal those cookies, you're going to hell, and things like that.
Lie to your mother.
So at that time, of course, I just revised my opinion of God. I said, oh, God wouldn't do that, God. So that's just not true. By the time I hit 9th grade, I became an all-out atheist. And what I think finally led to that was I started looking into other world religions and thought it was a much simpler explanation for all these religions, that we just made them up to fulfill our needs, because I noticed they all fulfill the same set of needs, generally, like an afterlife and a sense of meaning, and the universe is created for humans and things like that. It was a simpler hypothesis that those are all invented by man, that one of them happened to be right, and all these false religions had sprung up and this and that. So and then into humanism. I was an atheist, and when I came to college, I got involved with the campus group there and found out about humanism through that and became a humanist.
Now, would you guys care to share any thoughts on maybe just a definition of atheism? And I've heard some people say, well, if you're an atheist, you hate God. Now, do you guys hate God?
Well, I don't hate God because I don't think I can hate something that I don't believe exists. That's kind of difficult. I would say, well, there are two senses of the word, really. Some people talk about an atheist as being someone who believes that he can definitely prove that there is no God. He or she can prove there's no God, and an agnostic saying, well, there's no proof either way. That's a definition that someone like Bertrand Russell held when he said that he was an agnostic. But then there's the more common use of the word, I guess, in which an atheist is someone who simply believes that there is no God, maybe in a probabilistic sense. I'm pretty much 95% certain there is no God, so I'll call myself an atheist. And an agnostic is someone who just really isn't sure about the question, is maybe split 50-50.
Yeah, it depends on how technical you want to get with any of these definitions. So. I mean, an agnostic, in some people's usage of the term, is only someone who believes it is impossible for man to know whether or not a God exists or not. But these days it's come to mean something more like just undecided. So.
And just understanding the words, I appreciated what Derek said. Understanding the words etymologically gives us an understanding of the way we'd use the designations in reference to ourselves. I don't think anyone in the movement per se would argue that there's proof of God's non-existence. They would just appeal to the notion that there's a lack of evidence. And because there's an utter lack of evidence, there's no reason to assent to those propositions. We don't have a positive belief in his non-existence. We lack a belief in his existence. I think that's
And I think a lot of atheists as well might say that there is reason to doubt.
Right.
There is evidence, I guess, negative evidence against the existence of God that you can sort of weigh in with the sort of lack of evidence
like in a common sense way. We have no proof that Santa doesn't exist, but if we weigh and consider everything, we can say, well, we could probably just hunch that there ain't no Santa. Even if we go to the North Pole, he's not there. Someone argues, well, he's delivering presents somewhere else. We could say, well, there are better explanations for that kind of stuff.
So sort of to bring it back around, I think I really haven't met any atheists that actively, that say that they hate God. It's sort of like saying that, disbelievers in Santa Claus hate Santa Claus. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my experience too, but yet every now and then, I'll run across someone who will say, well, why do you hate God? And I try to give them an answer that reflects your views also.
Some people may hate the effect of belief in God, which can be destructive and create a lot of social unrest at times, the Inquisition, the Crusades, etc. But we wouldn't hate God, like Derek said, because it's a non-entity.
Well, why couldn't you just have a life that just simply says there's no evidence for the belief in a supernatural being, period? What brought you to humanism? I mean, why choose humanism? What does humanism mean to you? What does it have to offer to you?
Well, I would say that humanism, in addition to this component of scientific thinking and skepticism about the paranormal and supernatural entities, in addition to that, there's sort of this a sense of responsibility to fellow human beings and compassion for humanity that I think is pretty much present in everybody. I think almost every atheist that I have met is really a humanist at heart, whether he or she knows it. Humanism has this component about caring and a sense of ethics and responsibility. So for me, it was when I hadn't heard the term humanist or humanism, I was a humanist. But when I finally learned about the philosophy, it was something that I found very agreeable.
Yeah, atheism it doesn't say much. It's not much of a worldview. I mean, this table, technically speaking, is an atheist. All atheism is in and of itself is a lack of belief in a deity. And humanism offers a positive outlook on life, a comprehensive worldview based on reason and compassion and things that I think are very important in society.
Yeah, secular humanism is a tradition that has high ideals, and those who are part of secular humanism are moral, good people, good citizens who believe in compassion, like we've said, and really have the best interests of humanity at heart. We're not out to ruin humanity by attacking traditional claims in theology. We're out to make the world a better place in the here and now, using the application of reason to problems, not appealing to the miraculous or the superstitious. And so I think that's what draws people to secular humanism, because there's something positive about it. It's not just defining us in terms of what we don't believe, it's telling people what we do believe. And what we do believe, there are a lot of high ideals.
Well, if someone wanted to learn more about the values of secular humanism, where might they turn? If we have a young person watching or an older person watching, where could they turn if they wanted to learn more about what does secular humanism stand for?
Well, that publication right there is a good start, the Free Inquiry there.
This Free Inquiry magazine.
Yes.
I think we will be showing a copy of this sometime throughout the program. Okay, Free Inquiry magazine.
There's the Council for Secular Humanism. I'm sure you've talked about it on shows previously. And for people our age who are involved in the campus environment, there's, of course, the Campus Freethought Alliance. We'll all be able to contribute to an understanding of what that is. That's recently launched. Derek is a past president of the Campus Freethought Alliance from Harvard. I think it was officially launched from a few schools a few years ago, and in just a few years we've really achieved name recognition, and we've begun a movement of people on campuses who don't define themselves merely as those who don't believe in God. Instead, they say, we do believe in a lot of other things. We do believe in making the world a better place. We do believe in applying reason to problems. There's a long set of beliefs. So.
Yeah, I'd say the Campus Freethought Alliance is pretty important in this respect. Lots of humanists and freethinkers and these types of people come from families or communities where they're alone and maybe misunderstood, and we've created this sort of supportive student network. Just a network of like-minded individuals on the campuses that can support one another, and can also offer, in addition to an extended family, can offer information for people who are curious about that. It's a good organization, if I may say so.
Again, I'm thrilled that you folks are available. I wish something like that would have been available when I was growing up, because there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a college student out there today and they're thinking, I don't really believe, I just don't believe there's a God, certainly not a loving God, what might they gain from joining the Campus Freethought Alliance, and how can they contact or learn something about the Campus Freethought Alliance?
Well, a lot of the stuff Derek just said applies to that. There's this sense of, community when you plug into it. You can join the Campus Freethought Alliance as an individual. You could start a group at your campus if you don't have one. And if there is already a group there, you can join that and affiliate with the CFA. And in terms of benefits, I assume you mean not material benefits, which is something we provide to the groups, but it provides a sense of community that I think a lot of people miss once they leave their, not everyone's raised religious, but those who are raised in a religious environment, they miss that sense of community they had with their church and, people like that, and we provide that. So I think that's one of the needs that is important that we meet. There's others as well, which I'll let these guys talk about.
The Campus Freethought Alliance offers a lot to its members. Before we go on, we have an 800 number. There's also this number, if anyone out there wants to jot it down. It's 716. This is the Council for Secular Humanism, and by calling this number, you'll be able to be transferred to the Campus Freethought Alliance. 716-636-7571. 716-636-7571. That's the number where we could be contacted, and later in the show we'll get that 800 number too.
Okay, again, there will be an 800 number that's flashing across the screen,
Okay.
and we'd like to know, friends, if you're viewing the program and you call that 800 number, we ask you to please be very persistent in letting the person know that you'd like to talk to somebody about the Humanist Perspective program. You can ask for me, Joe Beck, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with folks from the Campus Freethought Alliance. Amanda Chesworth, I've forgotten her title other than I think of her as the
CFA coordinator, yeah.
The coordinator, very, very intelligent, articulate, hard-working young lady. I don't have her extension memorized, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's
220.
220. So if you were to call the 800 number on the screen and ask for extension 220, you would be put in touch with Amanda Chesworth, and she'll be happy to give you more information about the Campus Freethought Alliance.
I suppose I should also mention there's a website for those who have internet access. Yeah, that's it's moving to a new address that isn't up yet, but at the moment you can find it at www.secularhumanism.org/CFA.
So let's try that again. If a person wanted the web page, what would they put in the location bar?
Right. The URL is
www.secularhumanism,
one word, .org/CFA. Right.
Thank you. So let's see. You look like you wanted to say something.
Well, I'll always have something. I'll always have something to say. Yeah, at the website, people who log on to the website will find it interesting because they'll see the network of local affiliates, local CFA affiliates that we have. You'll be able to click on a link and be taken, say, to Washington University's local CFA chapter, which is called WOLF. Our motto is to not be a sheep, but to be a wolf. WOLF stands for the Washington University League of Freethinkers. You'll be able to, with the hypertext link, also be brought to Harvard's CFA affiliate or school after school. We have many, and we're growing by leaps and bounds. So people who are interested in CFA, that's where they can get a lot of information initially.
Another interesting thing about the Campus Freethought Alliance, I think, is that it offers a voice for students who are interested in either defending science and promoting scientific literacy and exposing pseudoscience and paranormalists, and also for students who are very active and want to do something about the religious right and their actions on the campuses and off the campuses. They're a very active organization that's done some terrible things to religious liberties and civil liberties and church-state separation, and this provides a way for students to organize and become active in this field as well.
Well, when you talk about separation of church and state, and we all know that with the recent increase in violence in the high schools and other places, some folks have said, we could eliminate this violence if we could just post the 10 Commandments in the high schools, or perhaps every college student could be given a card that says, here are the 10 Commandments. What's wrong with that idea?
Where to begin?
Yeah, well, if I can begin, I think it's an absolutely preposterous idea that there's this common assumption that more religion is this sort of panacea, this social cure-all that can be used to solve all of society's problems, and that assumption often goes unquestioned. But I'd like to question it. It's very interesting that in the rare instances when you see someone who doesn't believe in God go about and commit some sort of a crime, everybody cries that atheism is the cause of crime. Yet every day, somewhere around the globe, probably more often than not, there's some sort of horrible crime or violation of human rights that is at least partially religiously motivated. So, the people who say that atheism is really the cause of crime and murder and rape and all these horrible things have a lot to answer for. They have to answer for, the strife that's going on in Northern Ireland between Catholics and Protestants. They have to answer for the difficulties with Muslims and Jews in the Middle East, with Muslims and Orthodox Christians in Bosnia and Herzegovina and that area, there are all sorts of things like clinic bombings and federal buildings that are bombed by religious people with at least partially religious motives, and then there's the other question that if faith is the answer. If religion is the answer to acquiring morals, it's number one, which religion, and number two, which interpretation of which religion. As everybody should know, or as everybody may know, or as everybody should know, there are different versions of the 10 Commandments depending on your sect of Christianity. So, or Judaism. That's right. So, which version are you going to post? And I just think the idea that these marauding individuals that go around and see this list of 10 Commandments and then say to themselves, well, maybe I won't kill right now. It's just preposterous.
Yeah, it's bad.
I guess I could assume that you folks have never killed anybody, right?
That's right.
Well, no.
So, again, you're kind of postulating that there's no correlation between religion and morality?
Yeah, that's right.
It might be an inversely proportional relationship, let's say. I think that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, studies have shown that there's a lesser population of atheists in the prisons than there are out in the general population.
I'm reminded of.
I can speak to that one. I'm sorry. I've worked with folks in the prisons. I've met many people who profess a belief in God, mostly Jesus. Some folks who've been Muslims. I've yet to meet an atheist.
And they were believers before they got there. It's not just a ministry that appeals to convicts, but they were believers before they got there and somehow got themselves in a quandary.
And I think the real point, the real crux of it all is that no religion, just as no religion is privy to morality, as no religion has a monopoly on moral teachings. If you talk about the Golden Rule, Jesus' famous commandment, 11th commandment. Eastern philosophers like Lodze were teaching that years before Christ was walking the planet. Just as that is true, religious people are not privy to morality. They don't have this monopoly on morals and ethics. And I think if you do an investigation, you find that this common sense of what is right and what is wrong is something that everybody has, regardless of their faith and regardless of whether or not they have a faith. That's an important point.
Right. I'm reminded of an editorial writer a couple months ago in the New York Times, and I don't have the citation, and this is a paraphrase. He said something like, there will always be good people, and there will always be just bad people. But it takes a religious extremism to make generally good people turn into bad people. Because when you think that you have the right answer, that seems to give you a moral claim to treating people who you think are wrong as second-class citizens or just treating them poorly. You mentioned violence in the name of God. I think that goes a long way to arguing contra the notion that if we just spread around placards or give cards with the Ten Commandments on them, people will behave. People will be good citizens. Because those religious and political extremists who go out and in the name of God, Deus le vult, God wills it, in the name of God, they hurt other people. Well, all of those people, all of those Christians believe in the Ten Commandments. And in fact, their belief in the Ten Commandments and the other postulates of Christianity seem to motivate them to behave in ways that aren't democratic and don't belong in a democratic society.
Well, I think another important point is that almost nobody, aside from the very, very extreme biblical literalists and fundamentalists, aside from them, almost nobody really believes that religion is the ultimate source of ethics. If you look at the Bible, it tells you to do lots and lots of things. I mean, in addition to telling you to love your neighbor, you're also supposed to murder in cold blood. You're supposed to murder adulteresses and stone rebellious children and homosexuals and people sort of read the scriptures and they say, well, I like that bit about love your neighbor, but I don't like the other stuff. So that shows that there's this other source of
with a morality already in place.
Folks, excuse me, I just learned we have about 1 minute left. So I'd like to remind folks, if you're watching the program, you've been watching The Humanist Perspective, which is brought to you through a grant from the Council for Secular Humanism. And today we're interviewing 3 young folks from the International Campus Freethought Alliance: Derek Araujo, DJ Grothe, and Gabe Carlson. And our message to you is essentially, if you're a young person and you'd like to have some support, we'd like to know you are not alone, you can call us and we'll direct you to the contact people for the Campus Freethought Alliance. We'd also like you to know that we have a magazine called Free Inquiry Magazine, and we can also serve you with weddings, memorial services, and a variety of other human services. Fellas, it's been a tremendous pleasure.
Same here. Thank you very much.
And I'm hoping we can do this again. And we'll just continue talking about secular humanism. Have you had any experiences where people reacted negatively?
Well, yes.